Welcome to another episode of Life in Focus. I'm your host, Ben Tate, and today we have a recap episode where we're going to go over some of the great highlights of 2024 from speaking to some of our guests, and I'm also going to go over what you can be doing now while you're waiting to get into your first real estate deal. So with that said, let's jump right into it. So in 2024, we learned the most important thing is having a good credit score. Honestly, any credit score above 500 can get you approved with financing, but ideally you want to be in the mid 600s to the 700 ideally. But even if you have a credit score as low as 500, there are some lending institutions that will lend to you and will allow you to get your feet wet and start your real estate journey. So good credit score, obviously, that's key. The second thing is good debt to income ratios, right? We want to make sure that we're keeping good debt, keeping good debt levels, making sure our credit cards aren't too high, not making just the minimum payment, making sure that if we're behind on anything that we're kind of clearing those things up. All of these things are going to come up when the lender pre-approves you, whether it's conventional financing or a hard money lender. So we want to make sure that our debts are in the best possible spot. And again, we're not looking at just overall debt amounts. We're looking at your monthly obligation, right? And so if you have a monthly debt obligation that's $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 due to high credit cards, student loans, etc., car payments, whatever the case may be, we want to see what we can do to try to cut that in half or decrease it as much as possible, just so we have a more favorable debt to income ratio. Because that's the two big things: is a good credit score and debt to income ratio. And the last thing that we learned is that you want to have steady income. And so if you're looking at buying a primary home or an investment property and you hate your boss, just make sure you get pre-approved first and close that transaction prior to finding a new job or a new career path, just to make sure that there's no hiccups during the pre-approval process with your lending institution. So those are really the top three things that can make or break you when it comes to getting into investments. And so with that said, I also want to go over real quick, why real estate investments, right? Why are we pushing this so much as, something that could really benefit you? Well, the number one reason why you would want to get into real estate is because of leverage, right? You can't really use leverage in other modes of investments, right? So a perfect example is if an Apple stock is $100 a share, I can't spend $20 to get that one share. I have to spend $100 to get that one share in that example, right? In the same example, if a property is $100,000, I can use 20%, $20,000 to get that same property. So that's leverage of 4-to-1, and that's why real estate is so powerful. There's many people that like to debate on, from a returns perspective, is real estate really outpacing other types of investments? When you factor in the holding costs and vacancy, collection, maintenance, and all those other things, a lot of times people say, hey, the returns on investment might be very similar to what I can do in the stock market, to what I can do owning a business or other things like that. But that's where it comes to the second biggest reason why you want to get into real estate outside of leverage, which is the tax advantages, right? And so, for instance, if you own a property for at least 2 years, you have a $250,000 tax deduction that you can receive. If you're a married couple, that increases to $500,000 as long as you own the property for at least 2 years. That way, you're not paying capital gains if the property appreciates greatly while you're holding that property. Another tax advantage is the long-term capital gains, right? So as long as you hold the property for 12 months, now you qualify for long-term capital gain tax as opposed to short-term, which again will greatly change your tax liability. Another one would be depreciation, right? Good real estate always appreciates over time. In theory, you want your property to continue appreciating, but you can take depreciation against the improvements every year on your taxes, which will lower your liability. Another reason why people love real estate is because you can deduct operational expenses. So this is not only your utilities and your insurance and your taxes and all that good stuff, but it's also your travel expenses. If you're traveling around in your car, looking at different properties, if you have to get on a plane to go fly to a different city or state to go look at an investment, if hotel rooms, dinners, and food while you're in the course of business looking at properties or meeting with other investors or lenders, etc. These are all write-offs that you can have that fall under real estate. You can also deduct your mortgage interest, right? Another reason why we don't want to get so caught up in what the interest rates are sometimes is because we can deduct all of our mortgage interest that we pay each year from our taxes. You also have the opportunity to do what they call as a 1031 exchange. basically you can keep rolling over the profits from your previous real estate investment into subsequent investments into perpetuity. There's no limit on that, and basically by doing that, you never have to pay a capital gains tax liability. So that's, if I held the property for less than 12 months and I'm not going to qualify for my long-term capital gains, or if I didn't hold it for 2 years and I don't qualify for that $250,000 tax deduction, then I might want to look at a 1031 exchange. That way I can keep rolling my profits into my next investment without having to pay the government taxes. And so that's where you see somebody that's doing fix and flips, or if they're doing a spec build that's built and completed and sold within, again, under that 12-month period. And even if it's after 12 months, you can still elect to do a 1031 if that makes more sense than obviously paying the long-term capital gains. But again, multiple different tax advantages when it comes to real estate investments. And lastly, cost segregation deduction, right? So that's just a way that you can kind of expedite or speed up your depreciation write-off by segregating, fixtures and appliances, utilities, certain things from the property to kind of speed up what you can, claim as depreciation for that year. So these are just, some of the few tax advantages when it comes to real estate. And again, I would say the tax advantages from the deductions as well as the leverage are the two main reasons why you really want to look at a real estate investment. Moving forward, how can we get prepared, right? So before you find that perfect deal, before you find a good real estate partner, a lot of times when you're doing your first deal, you want to partner up with somebody, maybe somebody that's done this before, or even if you haven't done it before, you're at least mitigating your risk to some degree by splitting the cost, the cost of the investment. So what can you be doing in the meantime? Well, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you have a business entity already formed, right? So an LLC, so to speak. And you can do this pretty simply. You can literally go on Google and type, LLC formation, and there'll be a plethora of companies that pop up that can do it via online. Sometimes it's a quick phone call to get, to convey some information, but it's a pretty quick process. Some of the companies that I've used previously, and I know a lot of people use them and have good luck, is Prime Corporate Services and as well as LegalZoom. And again, those are just two examples, but there's many companies that do this service, and it typically takes only 2 to 3 days for them to get all the paperwork done. And not only will they form your LLC, they'll provide you with your articles of organization, basically that's filed with the state so that your LLC is valid. They'll also help you get an EIN number, which is an employee identification number. That number is going to take the place of your Social Security number, right, in regards to business, right? So it's not going to replace it for your personal needs, obviously, but from a business perspective, you're going to be assigned an employee identification number from the IRS. They're also going to help you form your operating agreement. So if you're a single member LLC, it's going to be pretty rudimentary because it's just going to be you, obviously, if it's a single member LLC. But if you have a partner, the operating agreement is going to be very important because this is going to outline how you guys want to run the business, the share of the profits. It's going to outline, if you put up X amount of money or capital to get the venture going, it's going to obviously delineate all the details of basically this business and who gets what when the profits come in, who gets what if the business dissolves. It's really going to be your rubric for how you want the company to run. So the operating agreement is very important. They're also going to give you what's called the initial resolutions, which is again they can change as over the lifetime of the business, but you need initial resolutions to get your business bank account open. So that's a very important document. All of these things are going to be important to, again, get your business bank account open. Once the business bank account is open, then you open up the possibility for business credit cards. And another thing that you can look into once you have your LLC formed is you can talk to your insurance provider, and you can get quotes and talk to them about an umbrella policy. Some business owners elect to get an umbrella policy that can protect you personally and your LLC for things that that could happen if you're running a rental property or other things like that. So that's, it's pretty simple. It could take a few days, but again, This is the stuff you want to start now, because if a deal comes across your plate tomorrow and you don't have your business entity set up, you don't have your business bank account set up, you're not really ready to seize an opportunity. So being prepared is half the battle. This is stuff that you can do now. You can do it before the end of this month. That way you can really attack this year, once an opportunity presents itself. Moving forward, I want to talk a little bit about business credit, right? You want to establish business credit as soon as possible, right? And going back to starting your LLC, it's the same thing. A lot of times when you want to go seek financing or funding for a project, they're going to look at how old is your LLC? How long have you had business credit established? So these are another reason why, even if you don't have a deal in hand, you want to get these things started. You want to get your timeline going on the age of your business and the age of your business credit. Similar to personal credit, right? How long have you had a personal credit score, right? They take that into consideration when you want to go get financing and funding, right? And the only reason why on a personal or business level that we work so hard to have good credit scores to limit our debt is so that we can, again, leverage ourselves, leverage our business, and that's how you can grow exponentially and grow quicker, right? And so when it comes to business credit, the first thing that you need to do, so obviously when you open the bank account, you want to see what kind of credit cards that they offer. Many times for even a new business that has, no history, you can typically get approved for $20,000 to $25,000 on your first business credit card. So I would go ahead and look into a business credit card as soon as you open up your business bank account. Typically for small businesses, Chase and Bank of America are some of the best two, national banks, so to speak, for a very small business. And they offer, some cashback cards and some good, starter cards, so to speak, for small businesses when it comes to credit cards. So the second thing you want to do is you want to go to Duns and Bradstreet and you want to apply for your Duns number, right? You want to apply for your Duns number because this is how they're going to track your business credit. Business credit, it goes off what they call as a Paydex score. So a Paydex score is just a business version of your Equifax, your Experian, and your FICO score, right? So a Paydex score goes to 100. You want to get that score to at least a 70 out of 100 to, have really good approval odds for most financing options. So when you first start off, it's going to be at 0. When you first open when you first apply for your DUNS number, you're going to be at 0 because you have no credit history. So how can you build that credit history? Well, what you need to do is you need to go and you need to either apply for or you could do this multitude of ways, but I would say the easiest way to do this would just be, again, go back to Google and Google different vendors that are net 30 vendors, right? You want to have at least 4 net 30 accounts set up. And these can be, again, there's hundreds of net 30 vendors. And a lot of times you can find vendors that, they sell stuff that you can use every day, like toilet paper and paper towels and cleaning products. And there's so many different vendors. And so what I would say is, choose at least 4 vendors that sell things that you can use in your everyday life. And you want to spend at least $50 with each of those 4 vendors every single month, right? So you want to have at least a budget of $200 per month, at least $50 for each of those 4 vendors every month. And you want to, obviously make a purchase and then wait a couple of weeks and then pay it off with that net 30 vendor, right? You do that for 4 months, and that's the quickest that you can get a score of at least 70. You keep doing that, and by 6 to 8 months, you can be up in the 90, 80, even up to 100 for your Paydex score. But again, you just need to get to at least 70 on the Paydex score to shift financing from your personal credit to your business credit, right? Which is the whole thing, right? Once you have a Paydex score of at least 70, there's going to be a multitude of financial institutions that will offer you a business line of credit, right? And so in most cases, when you have a 70 Paydex score, you can get $150,000, $200,000, $250,000 in a business line of credit, right? Why is this important? Well, obviously, if you're trying to buy different equipment for the business, or if you're trying to get into real estate, now you have some cash to get into your first real estate deal. After 4 months of simply spending $200 a month, $50 each net 30 account, just building your business credit. So the first thing you want to do is, again, get that LLC set up, get the business bank account set up with one of the institutions, get a business credit card, and then next, again, apply for your DUNS number, which is free, and then go find at least 4, more is better, but at least 4 net 30 accounts vendors, and spend at least $50 per vendor per month for at least 4 months to get that business score. Another important thing that you want to look at, again, while you're getting your team and your structure ready, is a team of professionals that you're going to be working with, right? We talk a lot about tax advantages and tax write-offs and all this good stuff. Obviously, it's very good for you to do your own research and be up on the latest, write-offs, deductions, and make sure that you're as knowledgeable as possible when it comes to that. But you also obviously want to let the professionals do what the professionals do. So you want to go find a very good CPA that also might provide bookkeeping services, and talk to a few. You want to find somebody that you work well with, that you get along well with, and somebody that's willing to answer your questions and provide advice, right? Some professionals, they won't give you the advice unless you ask them a specific question. Other professionals, they love so much what they do, they're mission driven, and they want to say, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Those are the type of professionals you want to work with. But first on the list is you want to have a good CPA. Secondly, we're talking about real estate. Again, you're going to want to have a good realtor. We've talked a lot about how you can find a good realtor. I've always said, pick a realtor based on if they do their own investments, whether it's short-term or long-term rentals, something outside of their own primary home. Is what I found as being the best realtors. They typically give the best advice. They typically advise based on what they would do because they are an investor and they understand the lens that you're looking through as an investor as well. So you got to have a good CPA, got to have a good realtor. You want to have a good general contractor as well, right? If you're getting into fix and flips, if you're getting into anything that's going to require a permit to be pulled, if you're getting into new construction investments, you're going to want to have a good general contractor. The more you work with the same people, the better rates and prices and fees and time that they're going to give you. And again, whenever you're trying to diagnose a potential investment, you're not going to have the expertise on the construction side, right? And so you're going to want to have a good contractor. And similar to a contractor, you're going to want to have a good property inspector as well. Once you get that property under contract, you're going to want to hire a property inspector. Normally it's a few $100 for them to come in and basically tell you everything that's wrong with the property. You take what the property inspector noted, you send it over to your contractor, and he says, hey, it's going to cost me X amount of money to fix this for you. Or, hey, it's not worth the cost to fix it because, the cost to fix it is going to far exceed the market value at the end, right? The after repair value, as they call it, ARV. So these are important team professionals that you're going to want to, again, at least have a contact with, at least make an introduction, say, hey, I'm getting ready to do some investments. Can I call on you? Or, what's your fees? What's your rates? What's your availability? These are all things you can be doing before you even are presented with an opportunity for a deal. And of course, you're going to want to talk to lenders, whether they're conventional lenders. You should always have at least 5 lenders in your pocket that you can call. I would say you want to have at least 3 to 4 conventional lenders. These are the cross countries of the world. You don't want to go through a national bank for lending. You want to go through a marketplace. And you want to have some hard money lenders as well. Hard money is going to charge higher interest rates, but they're going to have less requirements to get approved. They're not going to go through your bank statements and your P&Ls and your income history per se. They're just going to make sure that you have the cash to close and that you have a decent credit score and that your property is decent collateral. So sometimes, hard money makes more sense depending on the investment that you're going to be doing. Sometimes conventional makes sense. If you're going to obviously be a long-term or short-term rental, you're probably going to look more on the conventional side of things because you're going to be holding the property a lot longer. If it's going to be a shorter hold, then hard money might make a little bit more sense. So you're going to want to have a good CPA, a good realtor, a contractor, a property inspector, a lender, and lastly, you want to have at least a lawyer that you can call on when needed. Whether, again, if you're working with a partner on some of these deals and you want the lawyer to look over your operating agreement, or you want to look over some of the things that you guys have decided, or once you get into certain contracts, or especially if you're doing creative contracts, whether it's subject to or some kind of creative financing, seller financing, sometimes you want to have a lawyer look over things to make sure you're protected, make sure you're not missing anything. So I would say those are the key team of professionals that you want to, again, have contacts with, have in your back pocket so you can call them once you're ready to go. So when it comes to where to start today, I have a few thoughts on that, just kind of given our current climate, and a lot of my thoughts specifically relate to Florida and the Tampa Bay, St. Pete area. But again, interest rates are still high right now. We're coming off the heels of a pretty bad hurricane season. But with all these things being said, that to me, there's still opportunity, right? In real estate, it's just shifting what makes sense at that time. You have to be very flexible. You have to be shifting your strategies based on what makes the most sense. So obviously, when interest rates are a lot lower, long-term rentals make sense. Short-term rentals can make sense. Right now, we're seeing a big decline in short-term rentals. I think this just because there's a lot of supply. But again, a short-term rental that's on the beach in a downtown area, a short-term rental that's a newer property, they're still doing pretty well. So I wouldn't say that short-term rentals are off the board. But right now, I would say long-term rentals is something that I would probably avoid. The only way that a long-term rental really makes sense to me is if you basically did some level of creative financing to get that deal, right? So if I have seller financing, or if I have a subject to deal, which is basically I'm taking over the mortgage, and so this sale is subject to me taking over the existing mortgage, right? So if the homeowner has a 3% interest rate or a 4% interest rate, something that's 200 plus basis points lower than what I can get right now from a conventional lender, that might make the most sense. And then again, the interest rate is typically what's going to push you over the top from it not penciling out from being a cash flowing asset, right? When you factor in the reserves you want to keep on your rental, any kind of vacancy or collection loss, maintenance, etc., typically a high interest rate is going to make it so that long-term rental doesn't pencil out. And so for me, unless I was taking over somebody's mortgage, long-term rentals are off the board, just given the current climate. The whole point of investing in real estate is equity, right? A lot of people talk about cash flow. Cash flow is basically like this cherry on top, right? You go to get the ice cream sundae, not for the cherry, you go for the sundae, right? So to me, I think the equity is the sundae, right? So that's why we get property, is because it appreciates over time. And it's really the land that's appreciating, right? Because the improvement itself is really a depreciating asset, which is why we have the depreciation tax write-off with it. But in any case, a few years ago, you could buy a property and you might be $5,000 or $10,000 in the equity the day you bought the property, right? Right now, you're lucky to buy it for market value, right? And so I think a lot of people are scared to buy a property because, of the fear of, hey, if I buy a property today, in 6 or 8 months from now, am I going to be negative equity? Am I going to be positive? Where's it really going to be? Not to mention with interest rates in the high 6s or 7s, and I don't know if I'm really going to be in equity. This doesn't make too much sense, right? And so for me right now, I think that you want to have guaranteed equity. You want to create that equity. The pre-approval process for buying an existing home is the same, pretty similar, almost the same as buying a new construction home, right? And so for me, new construction is the way to go right now, right? You can you can buy the land up front and use that land as your equity for the construction loan, or you can package the purchase of the land and the cost of the construction in one single loan. You could do it two different ways. But the big thing is that you're going to have guaranteed equity, right? If you're going and you're building a new construction home, you should expect to have $75,000 to $100,000 in equity once that home is complete. That's something that you can't find or can't do by buying an existing home unless it's a short sale, unless you basically find a crazy deal. But generally speaking, you're not going to find those kind of returns. And so even if you're looking at a short-term rental, if you can make $30,000 to $40,000 per unit per year on a short-term rental, you're doing great. But you can make double that per unit on a new construction, right? And in most cases, the timeline for the build on a new construction is going to fall somewhere between 6 to 9 months, depending on the builder. And outside of that, you're just waiting for the permit. So basically, in short, you should be able to do at least one unit per 12 months, which again is going to equate to $75,000 to $100,000 in net profits per new construction unit that you're doing. And again, the pre-approval process is exactly the same whether you're buying an existing home that might be built in the 70s or the 80s or the 90s, or you can spend the same amount of money, make $75,000+ and have a new home that's built to the latest hurricane code. That's going to be, you can have hurricane safe windows. You can have the foundation a little higher than the base threshold, and do a few different things that make it, a safer house and more feasible for the current climate that we're in right now. Another thing that I would say is, when it comes to new construction, it's really the cost of the dirt, right? That's really what you're looking for when you're saying, hey, where do I find a good deal for a new construction? Well, it's going to come down to where can you find a good deal for the dirt, right? The cost of the construction is going to be the cost of construction. Again, once you make that contact with a general contractor, he's going to tell you what his costs are. It's not going to vary very much outside of you, maybe increasing some interior finishes, whether you're going to, low level, mid grade, or high level finishes. That's the only really, change in cost. But outside of that, you're really looking for a deal on the dirt. And so I would say if you're looking in the South Tampa to St. Pete, anytime you can find a lot for under $100,000, you're in a good spot, right? Another opportunity right now is the coastal areas, right? A lot of people are scared of the shore acres and the barrier islands and the beaches and all this good stuff because of the floods, but they don't understand that these houses were built in the 60s and the 70s, and so they had no chance for a 10 or 12 foot surge, right? But based on the new code, the living area is going to start on the basically 15 feet or higher, right? So it would take a 20-foot surge plus to even get your living area wet based on what the new code is right now. And so right now, there's a lot of people that are just done with the floods. They're just done with dealing with all the stress, and they're just selling these properties for basically land value right now. And so you can come in, you can get land well below market value. Again, get financing, put a new construction home on these beautiful sites. And again, if it's built to code, sure, you're still going to be in a flood zone. But the biggest worry is not living in a flood zone. It's living in an area that can flood your living area, right? And so again, if your living area is 15, 16, 20 feet off the ground and your first floor is really just garage level or unfinished space, you take the cars out of the garage and you're not worried as much when it comes to a storm from that perspective, right? So I really think that right now, again, unless you're using creative financing to get into, a property that you might be able to do some short-term rentals, I think right now, if you're looking at a pure equity play, something that's going to be guaranteed money in hand, you want to look at new construction opportunities. And again, you don't have to build 3,000 square foot houses. You can go find, lots that are 6,000 to 8,000 square feet lots and just put, very modest 12 to 1,500 square foot homes on there. And again, once you get the CO, you sell the property, right? And during the build process, you're only paying interest on your construction draws. So you're not even going to pay the mortgage until you get the certificate of occupancy. And by then, you might already had a real estate agent upload the property while it's being built, the renderings and the pictures and all that good stuff. And it might be sold by the time you get the CO anyway, so you never actually pay the mortgage. So again, a lot of making money in real estate is just moving things around and again, leveraging financing because you have good credit score, because you have good debt to income ratios, and you've made the contacts with the professionals that we've talked about. So, in closing, while you're waiting for that first deal, I would just implore you to make yourself, position yourself to be able to seize an opportunity, right? You never know when you're going to meet that investor that just needs boots on the ground to go do these deals, or somebody that's just looking to team up, or you just find the perfect deal scrolling on Zillow one day, or whatever the case may be. You just never really know. And so you want to make sure that you have your business entity formed. You want to start building your business credit. That way you can shift funding from your personal credit line to your business credit line, which again will help you when you go to buy vehicles for the business, different equipment, additional credit cards, whatever the case may be. You want to make sure that you have your team of professionals, right? You want to have your CPA, your realtor, your general contractor, your property inspector. You want to have all of these, your lenders. You want to have all of these contacts ready to go. And again, this is just going to position yourself to be able to seize an opportunity. So, this stuff it's not hard stuff to do, but obviously it takes a little bit of time. But this is all, like everything that we just went over right now can be done within a week or two. And then from there, you're just growing your business, right? And so the best time to start is now. I want you guys to have a profitable and successful 2025, and it starts by being productive right now. So I hope that you took something from this episode. Leave a comment. If you have a question or something you disagree with, please leave some feedback. I appreciate that. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.